Well, good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome in, and welcome back in, I should say, to the WNBA 365 Network, your new and improved 24/7 365 comprehensive home for everything and revolving around the WNBA and the women's basketball world. Join tonight, folks. We got a starting lineup for a pickup game here this evening. Joining you, of course, in studio is Cal McClurg here from Studio 171 San Diego, and of course, joining us as well is, of course, the a main contributor to the today's Fast Break, Eric Nemchok over in Elmhurst, Illinois, and of course our off-the-bench subs of Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart, both up in LA. And of course, folks, like we did last show on Friday, we have another new face to welcome into the starting lineup and making us ready to go if we want to play pickup somewhere. Folks, joining us over in the Gateway Arch City, St. Louis, Missouri, is Reagan Patrick. Reagan, good evening. How's everything going over in St. Louis?
It's pretty sucky here. No, it's actually really great here.
And of course, Reagan, like we said to Eric, of course, we appreciate you, of course, wanting to join us. Of course, as I had said plenty of times, we, again, are trying our best to kind of improve the product over here. And again, well, we've done, I guess, raised the bar a bit here with a now a starting lineup here, folks. And of course, real quick as well, we want to if you want to have your voice heard on this program, of course, there's plenty of ways to do that. More so on Twitter, please. Our handle is at WNBA365. All of our handles, my handle, is at Calimac3 on Twitter. Eric's handle is at NemChalkE. Crystal can be reached at Pup1010. And, of course, Tanisha Stewart, you know her better by her Twitter handle name at ShortyMama24. And Reagan's Twitter handle is at _rap, R-A-P, 24. Well, guys, we're going to begin with some off-the-court news, of course. As we know, everything's been very, very kind of on the WNBA home front right now, of course, with the season just finishing a few days ago, and, of course, players still basking the glory of championship victory or drowning their sorrows in spite of championship defeat, and, of course, some players as well beginning their campaigns overseas. But, of course, guys, the bigger story that overshadowed the entire season before it got started, of course, was what we have still been entrenched with, guys, is the entire running incident, and now, of course, the big news yesterday, of course, with Glory Johnson, the former Tulsa Shock forward, giving birth to her twin daughters a couple days ago. She made it public a couple days ago via her Instagram page. Reagan, we don't want to really start off with the rookie, but we'll start with you, since you are the new one in here, and you are the rookie of our lineup. Obviously, we've kind of done our best to keep this situation kind of off of our show and programming chatter in our lineup because it's been a very, very sensitive issue for not just all of us in the hangout or on the air, but of course for the entire WNBA and women's basketball fan base. Reagan, your overall thoughts on this entire thing, because I know that it grasped the national headlines, but like we've kind of seen, of course, no surprise, though, another women's basketball story for the wrong reasons is up in the news again. Reagan, your thoughts on the entire incident, and now, of course, the bigger news about Glory Johnson having her twins born a bit early than expected.
I mean, I think this all could have been avoided. After the fight, they should have just called it off. That could have been the end of it right there, honestly. I think they just drug it along, and, of course, like people like TMZ, I mean, they make a living off this type of stuff, so they have to do what they have to do. But it just makes the league look bad in my eyes, and it's something that I wish we could have avoided, but unfortunately we couldn't.
Crystal, over to you. We're going to use the old anecdote, Eric, of ladies first, so hang tight, buddy. We're going to get through all of our. Absolutely, we need to do that here to show that we are true gentlemen. But KT, in your mind, though, obviously, I know that you probably saw us talk about this briefly a little bit during the early parts of the offseason, mid-May, early June, before the season really got into the flow. Obviously, I know that this was more of a burden on Brittany Griner when he saw her play on the floor in some games where she would have, like, great games and seemed like that something mentally just clicked off in games about her more so. Obviously, as Reagan brought, though, about TMZ, of course, they live, they're like, vampires. We're around Halloween time, they feed off the blood and guts of a wrong WNBA story, like the Candace Parker issue that they supposedly, of course, the potential assault of a student at LA Southwest College last year, and then, of course, this one, of course. And Crystal, Reagan said that this could have been avoided. I think we all agree, though. But what are your thoughts, though, on this entire thing, and why?
I think it could have been avoided as well. I think the fight itself could have been avoided. There was too many people there to have let the fight go as far as it went. I mean, throwing dishes and dog bowls, and that's just ridiculous. It was just too much. And like I agree with Reagan said, and I also agree with you. There was a lot of games where she just mentally wasn't there, and I think that had a lot to do with it. I mean, the pending divorce, the babies, as you said, that supposedly nobody knew about at the time. So I think it was just a lot going on. And when she finally broke through, her game was way better this season.
Tanisha, obviously, you're more so kind of our, other than you being a great analyst on here, you're kind of our TMZ / almost athletes in the media person that retweets a lot of stories, of course. You sadly breaking the story about Lamar Odom and his very precarious situation in Vegas, now back in Los Angeles. So I kind of see more of the TMZ sports stuff from you than anyone else. So Shorty, when you kind of saw this stuff play out, and I know that we saw the marriage and the Instagram photos and all the trash talk by those two on Twitter, social media. Of course, not the best place to have a trash talking melee. Almost as bad as having a lunch fight at when you're in elementary school at the cafeteria. Shorty, in your mind, how could this situation have been avoided and why?
Well, in their case, I think it pretty much could have been avoided by just starting from the beginning. I think they went way too fast. I mean, they've known each other since college, but to just hook up all of a sudden, and then only barely after 2 months of dating, BG proposes, and then they get married, the next following May. So I just think from the beginning, everything just went too fast. Okay, if they, wanted to hook up, they should have, took things slow and let things play out from there. But instead, they were just like the road runner with the whole entire relationship, just going too fast. And then by the time everything took a halt, I mean, it ended up being one big mess. So they should have just slowed things down and got to learn each other more better.
All right, Eric, I saw you sipping your tea over there, buddy. I know that it's going to take a while to get to us, to our perspectives, of course. Trying our best to, be, professional gentlemen in this hangout. So, all right, Eric. All right, so you've heard everyone's side of the story, of course. I agree, though, with Tanisha, though. They were the Roadrunner and Coyote, basically. It was, bang, bang, bang. They were going through everything, and of course, they had everything else going on, of course. And then you find out about, the pregnancy, of course, with Glory Johnson. Eric, obviously, I know that this is it's a very touchy subject to talk about when it involves acts like this. So, Eric, your thoughts about this, and what are they and why, buddy?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say congratulations to Lori on her twins. But in the big picture, it's really hard for me to say something about this because in my mind, it's not really. I don't want to say it's not relevant to the league, but it's been blown way out of proportion compared to things that should have been addressed anyway. Because I think there have been a lot of big stories in the league, such as Candace Parker's absence, Diana Taurasi's absence, stuff like that. Whereas, again, you have TMZ feasting like vultures on this story. And let's be honest, Gloria and Brittany are still kids. They're older than me, so I'm still a kid too. But what I'm saying is, like,
I think we all are.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear that they rushed into things too quickly. I mean, proposing after, 2 months of dating, you don't see that too often. And I don't want to see what I would have done differently because I haven't even been in that situation before. So, again, I'm just going to leave it at congratulations, Glory, and I hope the lawsuit can be settled peacefully and we don't have to hear about this for much longer.
I think, Eric, I agree. I've kind of thrown him a towel, tapped out, said no mas, TKO, count me out, please, somebody. about this whole thing. And I think that, since we didn't talk a lot about it, I think we just wanted to kind of, sort of just talk about this a little bit. But I agree, though, with Eric, though. Congratulations, though, to Glory for having birth of the twins, though. That's all that really matters in the end. But in spite of what we may think or what other people may think about this, in the end, you don't want to you don't want to wish upon anything on anyone, whether it's, a former friend of yours or even in this case, someone that you were, legally, engaged and married to. So, of course, as well. But I think, though, guys, in the big picture, this soap opera could have been, the number one drama on NBC or ABC. It could have replaced General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, or any other of the great soap operas that I've had to sit through with my mom when I was younger. So who knows about that in the longer run in the end. But again, though, folks, as you know, Glory Johnson, Tulsa Shock's going to be Dallas player, giving birth to her twins just a couple of days ago. With that, we're going to go back to Reagan real quick. Now, I know that you guys that saw us on Friday, we broke down Game 5 of the finals a little bit. So, Reagan, now that you're in here, we can get your take on this. Obviously, we all talked about the turning point of the game being Maya Moore's game-winning three in Game 3 at the Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. And then we talked about the coaching adjustments and lineups that Cheryl Reeve did to, of course, give the Lynx the championship. So, Reagan, in your mind, your overall thoughts and your final thoughts on the entire final series, what are they and why?
That was a great series. I don't think anyone was expecting Indiana to make it that far. I know I wasn't. I personally thought that New York would make it to the championship. I don't know what just happened. But, so, like I said, I thought New York would make it to the championship. I think Indiana fought their hardest to get there. I think they deserve to be there. I was happy to see Tamika Catchings, doing her thing. But it all boils down to the point that Minnesota wanted it more. Indiana did what they had to do. Indiana did what they had to do. They held Maya Moore to 5 points in that last game, but they didn't have an answer for fouls. They didn't have an answer for Moan. It was just something that they couldn't handle. And I guess the person who wanted it more walked out with it. And
the lights will flicker on and off, just like the story.
Yeah,
I get it. All right, so Reagan, don't worry about it. As you know, I'm sure you know we've had way worse things happen in here, so don't feel bad about the lights going out. You're good. Eric, you actually gave me an idea, and I kind of hate when people give me ideas. I'm looking at you, Thomas, for giving me the idea to interview Candace Parker last year. That's why she's still up here right now. But Eric, you gave me an idea, though, because you brought up about Candace Parker sitting out, and that was something I wanted to tackle as well, but it just eluded me until now. Jigsaw memory up here. No one's home right now, but the lights are on, but no one's home. Reagan, we'll start with you on this one again. Now, obviously, we know that there was, I don't know if you want to say controversy, but a lot of negativity, I guess you would say, from, I think, all of us in some way about kind of the state of the league this year. You had Candace Parker, you had Diana Taurasi, you had Penny Taylor, you had Janelle McCarville, all those players sitting out either to fulfill overseas obligations set forth by their offseason commitments to either take the half a season or the full year off. So, Reagan, your overall thoughts on this, because I know that Cheryl Swoops, legend in her own right, slammed the players a little bit for how they've kind of done this a little bit in recent years. So, Reagan, I want to get your take on this, because I know that I think you, but I think all of us, though, are a bit guilty, though, of kind of sounding off on this. Your thoughts on seeing these players take this time off, either half the year or the full season, for something happening around this time every year, which is the off-season play. Your thoughts and why?
Overall, I think it hurts the league a lot, especially with DT sitting out after they just won the championship. I remember the year before that we said that they choked the whole year. But I think, well, if anything that I've learned so far in my classes is that money rules everything. And DT did what she had to do to make her money. She did what she had to do. That I think she was thinking about her future more than she was thinking about the now. And so I'm not slandering her for sitting out. I'm not slandering CP for sitting out. If she didn't feel like she was ready, then she wasn't ready. And we saw how she came back. She came back in MVP form, honestly. So I think sitting out was probably the best idea she's ever had so far. As far as everyone else, like I said, if they're not up to playing, then they're just not up to playing. You can't make someone play. I do feel like Sylvia Fowles sitting out for the time that she did was just childish, in my opinion, but that's just me. So,
Crystal, obviously, this has been a bit of a touchy subject, kind of like the BG Glory Johnson snafu that occurred over the offseason. Of course, with Diana Taurasi being, making, breaking the barrier, you can kind of say about sitting out for the season, how that was a full back page story in the San Diego Union Tribune the day it broke, which was a bit strange to me because they actually do put the WNBA standings and transactions in my local newspaper down here in San Diego. But to have that story, though, as a full back page article about that was something I haven't seen in a while. And obviously, that kind of shows you, though, what the future, sadly, may hold for this league as more and more players, star player or bench player, taking that time off to not play a full season. In Diana Taurasi's case, in Penny's case, in Janelle McCarville's case, or in Parker's case, half the season. Crystal, your thoughts about this trend that may be continuing into the future, and why?
Well, in the first case, like Reagan said, money, rules everything. In the second case, Diana Taurasi isn't a spring chicken. What is she, like 33, 34? So I think a lot of it was to preserve her body. She's getting up there in age. She's trying to keep longevity, and that's one of the things with any athlete. You want to stay in the game as long as you will. And like Reagan also said, Candace Parker took those couple of months off and came back and was a beast. Probably one of her best seasons we've seen, even though it wasn't a whole season. So I feel like, in one hand, it does hurt the league, but at the same time, if you come back and players come back and they're playing the greatest basketball of their lives, and I think it won't be a problem. But this also stems back to what we've talked about, how the league should do something with raising finances. I mean, if you did this, there would be no reason why they would have to go overseas anyway. It would be better for them to sit at home and rest and hopefully come back injury free and in great playing form. So and also it refers to Sylvia Fowles. Liz Cambage did the same exact thing, kind of like not wanting to be there. So I kind of feel players who do that, it exempts them because that is kind of giving the league a bad name. But if you're doing it for rest and longevity, then I feel like it should be, they should get like a lighter sentence as far as slander goes.
Tanisha, obviously you heard that. Okay, we've heard Sylvia Fowles, we've heard Liz Cambage now. We haven't brought Tina Charles yet. I'm kind of pushing them aside because that was a whole nother reason why they sat out. It wasn't about anything that we're discussing in this discussion right now. So, Shorty, in your mind though, when seeing all these players that I name dropped earlier, Ace, DT, Penny, Janelle sitting out, for longevity, for their future years in their career. Your thoughts about seeing that this year? Because obviously this season did not only have the same type of flavor, the same kind of pizzazz or oomph to it, because those players were not there this year. Your thoughts on this whole thing with players sitting out to cite rest, and why?
I mean, overall, it makes sense because these players play almost 12 months a year. So, when they take some time off, whether that be during half a season or a full season, it makes sense because they have to rest up their bodies and they have to prolong their career. So that's the reason for the rest. And, as far as contracts go, I mean, I hate to piggyback off of everyone else, but hey, it's the truth. Until salary goes up, you're just going to keep seeing the same things happen over and over again. Players are going to continue to choose, where the money goes, which is their overseas ball clubs over the WNBA. I mean, we're in EuroLeague where they can make over $500K. In WNBA, salary cap is high as what, 110K. So it's a sad reality, but again, not enough money in the U.S. over here, so the WNBA is going to continue to be an afterthought.
Eric, obviously, I pushed Syl to the side, but I can kind of bring her back in now with you being in the Chicago area. And frankly, man, obviously I know that Syl was there for a long time, but Eric, I'm sorry, man, that was one of these to you guys. Slap in the face for the way that she literally took that time off, along with Tina Charles in Connecticut a couple seasons ago when she got dealt to New York, and even Liz Cambage, how she held out and then was excluded off of the roster for the Australian national team for choosing a concert festival over the first day of training camp. So, Eric, obviously, with those three now thrown into the picture, what about your thoughts on this entire sit out a season for rest, or, sadly, in your case, sit out a season because you want to go to a better team, and why?
Well, I think the Sylvia Fowles situation is a little different than the Candace Parker or Diana Taurasi situation. And that's because Sylvia Fowles, while yes, it was pretty heartbreaking for us in Chicago, it was kind of a business decision. Like, she wanted to go to a better team because she wanted to win, and she was sitting out because until she got that demand filled. I don't want to speculate on what the reasons were. Same goes for Tina Charles. Same goes for Liz Cambage. But as far as the other players, the elephant in the room is that the WNBA cannot afford to pay its star players. And unfortunately, like the ladies before me said, it's a disturbing trend that's just going to continue because they can keep getting this money in Europe and still be making more than they're making in the WNBA. And when you're playing almost all year long, there's really no reason to risk significant injury. As Crystal brought up, longevity of their careers. I think it's right now it's just in their better interest to not play for the WNBA, to play for overseas.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And as someone that actually has kind of been through this gauntlet of year-round play, I did it for 3 years when I was out of 8th grade and going into high school, where I had played a regular baseball season, and then come August I was on a jet plane flying to Japan or Italy or Mexico to play international baseball for another 2 to 4 weeks. And I can tell you guys firsthand that toll, if you've never done it, it about kills you. I mean, I made it through 3 years and made it through an extra year going to Australia in 2012 when I had finished playing in high school. And, the body just cannot sustain that. And to have done that for 3 and 4 years, it's like now I know why Candace Parker sat out and why Diana Taurasi sat out for future longevity and for their careers. And obviously I've stopped playing ever since leaving high school and finishing up my bachelor's in communications and broadcasting. But guys, now that you know that someone in this hangout has gone through that longevity, I mean, I can tell you. I mean, I wake up mornings or in afternoons, depending on how late I sleep. Just there's days where I wake up and my back flares up, or my elbow will flare up, my ankles, my knees, my arms, yep. My whole body basically, because it's a demanding process to go through. To go through that gauntlet of one regular season, still play a bit when you're on downtime, and then go and play in a foreign country for 2 more weeks or 4 weeks at that. With the time change and the weather change, and luckily when I was there in August, it was scorching hot still and summertime, except that one time I did go to Australia when it was freezing cold and raining in wintertime down there. But in all seriousness, it's a real demand on you, not only physically but mentally, of being so far from home. And of course you're doing it for the love of the game. In my case, it was for the love of the game, not for piggy banks and Brinks trucks and credit cards and so on and so forth. But I mean, now you see why they do this, and I agree with everyone as well, though. And obviously, Reagan, with your case, I'm just going to throw this out to you as well. As well, though, with the NWSL, it's the same type of way, low teams, and those players in that league do not get paid a whole lot either with a product that is growing. Trying to grow soccer like the WNBA has grown basketball for female athletes, so obviously those two leagues both are in the same boat. Maybe even the NWHL just started up a couple days ago, too. So all three of those leagues, folks, are same type of deals where you have more so all the Olympians that play soccer, hockey, or basketball playing in a professional league, and obviously, as we know well, factors and hurdles that, of course, prohibit us and prohibit them from having, really good futures with everything when it's all said and done. All right, gang, our final topic for the night is our second of 12-team recaps of the season. Tonight is the San Antonio Stars, coming off of a year where they were booted out of the AT&T Center due to summer renovations and played their games at the former home of the Stars and Spurs and their AHL team down there, the Rampage, the Freeman Coliseum, literally right across the street from AT&T Center. But Eric, this year, man, major transition. We'll go with you on this one like we did last week. Obviously, wow. I mean, who knew that Becky Hammond being gone and that team would be sadly like a herd of chickens running around with their heads cut off last year? That's sadly, in all seriousness to everyone out there, that's what it was. I mean, it was a team really much in disarray and dysfunctional last year. Losing that veteran leader, I think, is the only thing I can really say about that team last year was them losing their vet and their spark plug in Becky Hammond. Eric, in your mind, man, obviously we thought that Dan Hughes may have been, heave-hoed out of there, but according to reports, what I heard from Andrew Monaco of Fox Sports South and Fox Sports and their Fox Sports affiliate, he had re-signed a contract extension to be back there for at least 2 more years, at least, what I gathered. Eric, your final take on the Stars season and their future going forward, and why?
Well, the Stars are in a pickle, and I think they really needed to win the lottery because you look at that team now, and they were built for the playoffs before Hammond retired, before Sophia Young-Malcolm retired, and now so much they're not really they don't really have a lot of young talent they can build around. I like De'Erica Hamby, I like Danielle Robinson, but you look at Danielle Adams, you're not sure if she's ever going to be in shape to play 30 minutes a game in any season. Same goes for Jane Appel, who really is kind of a one-dimensional player, just rebounding. And you look at the starting lineup and you think, where is the firepower going to come from? You got Kayla McBride, great young player, but you wonder, I love Gia Perkins, but how long is she going to be able to do it for? They really needed to win the lottery. They didn't. I love Mariah Jefferson, but is drafting her to the same team as Danielle Robinson is on? Is that going to be redundant? You don't know. Although I do like resigning Dan Hughes. I think he's a great coach. GM maybe not so much because I really didn't like the Alex Montgomery trade because I think they really could have used Kia Stokes. They really could have used one of the players from the draft this year. But I think he's very good with young players, and I think if anybody can keep that team afloat, it's going to be him.
Crystal, obviously, a lot of rumors about Dan Hughes possibly getting booted out of San Antonio, Walker, Texas Rangers style down there in the Alamo City down there in the Lone Star State of San Antonio. But obviously, Eric brought up, though, of course, Becky Hammond, of course, that, the engine to that San Antonio train last year, of course, now coaching with the a legend in the NBA, Greg Popovich now with the Spurs on the sidelines now. Your final take on the Stars season and why?
Horrible. I mean, that's the nicest way I could put it. It was just bad. I don't know how to sugarcoat it. It was pretty bad, and I've been a fan of some bad teams, so I know bad when I see bad. One of the bad
Trust
things,
me, I live in San Diego. I know well.
One of the bad things is you can't have your post player leading your team in 3-point percentage. That's not good. When your post player, De'Erica Hamby, to be more specific, is leading your whole team in 3-point shots, I don't know if that's really a good thing. Not to take anything away from Hamby, but I just don't know if that's what you want, especially going in to a team like that. And like Eric said, I mean, Gia Perkins has one foot out the door. She's another person that's not a spring chicken either. And I agree, Jane Appel is pretty one-dimensional. There's not much you can really do there. And the fact that they did trade away, let me get this name right, Kia Stokes. I think I got it right. Hooray! I got it right. The fact that you trade away Kia Stokes. The fact that you trade away Kia Stokes for Alex Montgomery, who really doesn't do much, it's pretty much you just gave away an almost Rookie of the Year for a bag of Lay's potato chips. I mean, I just think that's ridiculous. That's that was probably one of the most ridiculous trades probably this year. Dan Hughes, I don't think Dan Hughes is the problem. I just think the team needs to get a little bit younger. I think the team right now is too old. They might need to get rid of a couple of players that really aren't a factor anymore. But I think that's one of the main reasons. They just got to get a little bit younger. And I might have to agree with Eric too. Their GM, it might be time to kind of sweep him out of there. But other than that, I just think San Antonio just has to improve. I mean, who knew that losing Becky Hammond would be that much of an effect. They let you know they didn't prepare for the future at all.
Reagan, I think that Crystal's made a great point here as we go to you now again, that they did not plan for their future post Becky Hammon. Obviously, when Hughes made that trade with Trader Bill for the draft pick, of course, with Kia Stokes, who was a chance there. Of course, actually, they also could have gotten Brittany Boyd, but of course, that was a trade as well made by Bill for Boyd as well out of Cal. Reagan, obviously, we know that perhaps Hughes they may need to get a new GM, keep Hughes perhaps at head coach. But your thoughts on the entire Stars season for 2015 and why?
It was a long season. It was a very, very long season. But like Eric and Crystal said, that trade, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, I couldn't even know. I don't know what happened. But it just seems like to me that their team has no chemistry at all. I don't think they know how to work together well. And some of their players, I think it's just time to let them go. I think it's time to start new. This draft next year, they may not have won, but there's some really good players coming in, and they just need to make that choice wisely.
Tanisha, obviously, we've all piggybacked on no Becky Hammon being the main culprit, we would say, about the Stars having a very, very shaky and very, pretty pathetic 2015 season, you can kind of say, in regards to just how rough it was for the Stars trying to get started this year. Of course, playing their games away from home, but, all this and that, everything else included. Shorty, what has to happen, though, for the Stars to get back into playoff contention in 2016? Where do they start from square one, and why?
Well, since it's the off season, of course, along with having the number 2 overall pick, they should, look into free agency, see what's out there, because most definitely they have a lot of things they need to change. I mean, for the the Stars.
Close enough.
You get caught up on calling them the Silver Stars, but I mean, they need to do better, of course, as a team overall, because when it comes to rankings, I mean, they were a mess. I mean, this team ranked last in PPG, scoring 68 points a game. Yes, PPGs. They scored 68 points a game. That is 12th in the WNBA. They were 7th in RPG, getting 32.6 rebounds per game. They were 10th in APGs, dropping 15.2 dimes a game. And last but not least, they were 9th in points allowed. Now, I just stated that they scored 68 points a game to only give up 72.7 to the opposition. So if they want to have a more successful 2016 season, they definitely have to do better in those categories.
Definitely. Again, folks, the Stars have the number 2 pick for the 2016 WNBA draft being held later on during the coming months, of course. That'll be held at a later time and date and should be held on ESPN and the ESPN family of networks. Okay, I misspoke. I had one more thing I wanted to get to because obviously, guys, we know though that this was a changing of the guard for the WNBA draft lottery specifically. Of course, the league announcing that they would shuffle up the format and the entire format basically of the draft lottery, where of course you had the bottom 4 teams did not qualify, of course. But of course, did a few minor tweaks and stuff included about the process of the draft lottery now, where now it'll be the combination of the teams, of all 4 teams and their combined record through the past 2 seasons. Eric, I believe, I don't know if it was you or someone on Fast Break wrote a story, though I believe, perhaps, it's eluding me, about the draft lottery format now post this change. Eric, you're over. Eric, what are your thoughts on this? Because eventually it's going to go up to the NBA and perhaps to the D League eventually, where it's going to go up there. Because of course we know the WNBA is the NBA guinea pig for testing out stuff. So Eric, what are your thoughts about the league shuffling up the draft lottery format specifically, and why?
I think it was a good decision. I think it was a move that had to be made. I think the people upstairs in the WNBA, they saw that they looked at 2013, the draft, and they said, okay, that can't happen again. Because you had the Washington Mystics who were in danger of folding, I would say, if they didn't get a good draft pick, and they struck out. Fortunately for them, Mike Tebow's done an amazing job at GM, but they really needed, one of the three to see, and they didn't get it. But I think what the big part of it is, you talk about tanking. The league is pretty small, and the seasons are pretty short, so it doesn't even necessarily have to be tanking. It could be like, I know you guys out there in LA, the first half of the season was terrible. Candace Parker wasn't there. You were dealing with injuries.
Terrible ain't the word. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, but exactly. So, but just imagine if that went the whole season. If CP decided, no, I'm going to take the whole year off. See what happens then. Then LA's likely a lottery team. But then what happens if they end up winning the lottery by chance? Well, then CP comes back. Then you have NECA. Then you have possibly Breanna Stewart. And then the teams that are really in need of help, like Seattle and San Antonio. You saw in the first. I'm sorry. Like the first instance of the new system, it worked to perfection. The team with the best odds won. Seattle won. San Antonio came in second, and the two teams that were probably in better position for the future in Atlanta and Connecticut, they didn't really. I don't want to say deserve a higher pick, but they weren't in as dire of need for that higher pick as the other two teams were, and they were rewarded as such. So I think it's a good. They're making the effort. That's what I can say, and I think it's a good start.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to make an effort to go forward, with something, again, as Eric said, though, that we do not have an instance like 2013 all over again. Now, Crystal hopped out briefly. Shorty came back in. Reagan, we'll go to you now because you're next in line here to talk about
Crystal's out again.
Well, now Crystal's back in, but we'll still go to Reagan first. Then we'll go back to Crystal. Reagan, what are your thoughts, though, on the WNBA switching up the draft lottery format? Because obviously, as Eric said, you don't really want to see 2013 happen all over again. I don't think we do at all. What are your thoughts and why?
I totally agree with Eric. 2013 was a disaster as far as the draft went, and I think they realized that, and I think they're trying to make up for it. They're trying to fix a couple of mistakes, and overall, I think it was just a smart idea.
Yeah, it's smart all around. Okay, I think we've got Crystal back in. She's a bit frozen. We can hear her at least, but Crystal, of course, we're talking about, as we know, again, WNBA switching up the draft lottery format specifically. Now it's a combination of the bottom four teams and who had the worst record for a combined 2 seasons. Again, I think, though, that it all kind of stems back to the alleged incident of the Mercury presumably tanking when they went 7-27 in 2012 without, of course, with Diana Taurasi sitting out with that alleged hip flexor strain, and of course Brittany Griner goes to Phoenix #1, and of course Della Dawn and Diggins follow suit. Not in that order though. But Crystal, was it the right idea? Was it the right thing for the league to do to kind of try to halt any type of possible tanking or collusion in regards to that as well?
Well, first and foremost, that was karma for me calling San Antonio and LA terrible. That's what happened. But I think it was right for them because even though the season is short, tanking was a problem. Not saying that Phoenix tanked to get PG, but just tanking in general was a problem. Now they make it to the point where if you want #1, you just have to collectively be bad. It's not like you could be bad for one season and get them. And I do feel bad for Washington that one year. I kind of felt for them. That one hurt my heart a little bit. That one hurt my heart. I thought that was a little bit unfair. But that's the way the tables turn, unfortunately, and I think the league did the right thing by you just can't be bad for one season. You just have to collectively be bad over a certain number of years.
Tanisha, obviously we know that this all kind of, as I said, this all stems to, again, alleged tanking done by Phoenix in the 2012 season when they had gone from the previous year of being in the postseason, in the conference, in the playoffs, to all of a sudden a team that was 20 games below 500 and buried in the bottom half of the conference. Now, obviously, whether it was Coach Corey Gaines or whether it was Taurasi sitting out, though, anyway, to go from up here to down there that quickly just didn't really, I think, we all kind of, smelt something fishy perhaps going on. So, Shorty, in your mind, right decision, right move made by the league to go in this direction for the lottery to be shifted for the draft?
I would say most definitely. I mean, we're going to continue the trend. Let's call the new rule for what it was. It was the Brittany Griner rule to discourage tanking from teams who only had one bad season. So they were right. Were right to do what they did. So now teams will genuinely be bad instead of just one bad season, get a top pick.
Yeah, I think that, when you kind of look at the big picture, guys, maybe not in prior drafts, perhaps when at the time in 2008 when Los Angeles got the #1 pick after a pretty dismal 2007, where they had gone 10 and 24 to get Candace Parker in that draft. Of course, she had Big Sil go 2 to Chicago, #2, and of course, Candace Wiggins goes 3rd to Minnesota in 2008. There may have been like other years perhaps where we may have had similar types of alleged forms of tanking. Not saying that those 3 teams did tank, but I think though that it's you kind of knew something was up though, because I think though, Eric, just before we wrap up here, Eric, I think though to see a team go from way up here in the conference to suddenly sink like the Titanic did, or like sink like a stone to the bottom part of the conference that quickly, you kind of knew something was up though, didn't you? Kind of a little bit, yay or nay?
Well, see, here's how I look at it. Like, you have a team who is struggling most of the season, either by injuries or poor coaching or whatever's going on over there, and you think, okay, we're not going to make the playoffs, and even if we do somehow miraculously sneak in as the 4th seed, we're going to get rolled in the first round. So wouldn't we rather have a chance that the #1 overall pick to rebuild our team immediately? I'm not endorsing tanking, but I think I don't want to say it's the right move either. I don't want to give you guys the wrong impression, but I can see the logic behind it, and I think that's why they needed to do something about it, because as you guys were saying before, taking the 2-year cumulative record is a much better decision, because it lets you know, okay, this team has been bad for a while, or they've been in help for a while. They've been in need of help for a while now. So yeah, and that would increase the odds in their favor. And also, on the other hand, you have the rule that prevents the highest odd team from getting any lower than 3rd, as the Mystics did in 2013. So I think it works both ways. I think it's just an excellent rule overall, and I think it's going to help the league a lot.
Yeah, I think that, once we get, I think with the NBA specifically, how we've kind of seen, specifically maybe Philadelphia, how they've been like in desperate need of help the past couple seasons. They've been pretty much in bad luck. I think that this type of system that you're seeing in the WNBA, when it does go to the NBA in a couple seasons, whether it's next year or not, it's gonna drastically help teams that are in need for some help sometime soon. But with that though, folks, we have run out of time for the evening. We will see you folks back here on Wednesday. I am stuck at work tomorrow night doing some volleyball action down here in San Diego. But with that, we'll be back on Wednesday. When we do come back on Wednesday with our starting 5 back in play, we'll be talking about the Connecticut Sun and their 2015 season. But with that, folks, for all of us in this hangout, for Eric over in Illinois, and of course our new teammate member Reagan down there in St. Louis, and of course for us 3 out here on the West Coast in Southern California, for Crystal, Shorty, and yours truly, have a safe night. Drive home safely. Thanks for stopping by and joining us. Good night. We'll see you back here on Wednesday. This has been the WNBA 365 Network. We are the WNBA, and we are covering anything and everything in regards to the WNBA and the women's basketball world. See you folks back here on Wednesday. Bye-bye.